Okay. All right, we'll record it so we have it. And just want to go back to Daf Vav Amud Aleph, where we left off. And we learned, I want to just quote that Gemara because it's been a while. Let's just go back. And then we'll learn today's Gemara. So we said, Saita Ha Milsa, this thing, Amar Lan Rav Sheshes told us. Va'an Har Lon Einin Mimastisin, and he lit up her eyes, showed it to us from the Mishnah. What did he show us? That a Saita, woman who is a Saita, Sheyesh La'edim Mimdina Sayam, that has witnesses in another country. So a suspected adulteress that has witnesses that she really did cheat. So for some reason the witnesses are not here. Ein Hamayim Beit Kenoisa, the waters will not check her. The waters won't. In other words, so the waters is a special potion that Hashem made that could verify if the woman's is a saita or not a saita. But since this woman, Rav Sheshes says, since this woman has witnesses that can tell us that she is a saita, the waters are not going to work. And we had a whole discussion, and if you remember in the previous Gemara, remember we had an opinion. We're going to quote him today too, who says, well, then how do we ever know if it's true? Whatever. How do we know that the people that had checked that did not die, that they're really not cheaters? And we started questioning this premise. And the Gemara is going to continue, as I think often is the case, when even especially when we follow the halacha like somebody, the Mishnah will keep on questioning him. By the way, that opinion was Reb Shimon, I think, who was questioning this idea. And we're gonna quote him at the end of today's Gemara too. We're going to continue to ask interesting questions about the theory that the water won't work if there's Eidim in Medina Sayam. And we're going to question it from a new Gemara. So let's see inside. Fascinating way the new question comes up. Let's see. Masiv Rav. Rav asked the question. The Eilu and these people, I'll explain in a minute what he's quoting a saying from Rav from elsewhere. No, Rav is quoting I think a Mishnah from somewhere else. Ve'elu and these, shemin chayseim nisrafa is their mincha, their korban mincha, the meal offering that you bring. You know, there's different reasons we bring meal offerings. Sometimes it comes with the korban. You know, you bring extra gifts together with the korban, or so on. These minchas, you have to burn them. You cannot use them in the Beis Hamikdash. You cannot use them in the temple, and you have to burn them. What is the case? I'm thinking about doing Rashi's with you guys, and maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll go to Rashi's. Is that cool with you, Gershon and Menashe? If we quote some of the Rashi's, it's good. So I'm going to point it out also. Show you that their mincha offerings are burned. Mincha is kinois shalom. The meal offering of the jealousy of the husband being jealous of the wife, and they bring a korban with it, and they bring a meal offering with it. So part of the sacrifice that comes along with the woman drinking the potion is a sidra sa'efa. It's a tenth of an ephah, kemach sa'irim of barley, and we just had this in the parsha. It was in last week's parsha, actually the chumash of the saita of this suspected adulteress. And it says that she has to bring barley, and over there Rashi I think said because she did it. It's like an animalistic thing, so you bring a barley that animals eat. And sometimes this meal offering, nisrafa is lamata al beis hadeshin. You have to burn it. You can't end up using it. You must burn it on the bottom of, there's a spot on the bottom of the mizbeach, cannot be brought up an altar as a sacrifice, but it has to be burned on the bottom of the mizbeach. She'ein ruyas likra, because it's not fitting to bring it as a sacrifice. Something happened that disqualified it for some reason. But not anymore is it allowed to be brought up. And it does not have the option either to redeem it. In other words, sometimes you might say, look, got disqualified. Okay, no problem. What we're going to do is we're going to take money and we're going to buy another korban instead. But for some reason, it's a problem. It's a big problem. You cannot redeem it. It's too late to redeem it. Maybe at an earlier stage, we're going to see you could have technically redeemed it. But it's not at an earlier stage. And the later stage, it's too late, but the problem is it's disqualified, can't redeem it anymore. So what do? You have to burn it. Where do you burn it? On the bottom, there was a place on the bottom of the mizbeach in the azar over there in the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash, where they would burn it. What are they? What are the cases? Where do you have a case? It's very interesting. Where do you have a case where you have to burn it, but you can't redeem it? You can't say, look, it was disqualified. Let me just redeem it and use the money for another carbon or something. If the woman says, I am tummy, she admitted it. And Rashi explains, why would the woman admit that she's tummy? Because she admitted to the Bezdin. So in other words, drink it, drink it, drink it. And she's saying, we don't know. She said, nothing happened. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. And all of a sudden she says, yes. And meanwhile, you made the whole potion. And you started bringing the sacrifice. You started getting ready. You didn't make the potion yet. Maybe you started bringing the sacrifice. And she finally admitted. Now, why will she admit it? We learned it in the Chumash, this passage parsha. Like the Mishnah says, they would make her very scared. They never wanted to really make the potion. They never wanted to scratch off Hashem's name with the letters of the Torah, those psukim of the curses in there. So they would actually do everything to avoid it. They would take her from place to place and move her around, to weaken her resolve to lie and hopefully break her, and she'll admit it, and then they didn't want to give her the potion to kill her in that kind of a way. So they tried to tell her, if it's not true, the potion's going to work, we're warning you, and we don't erase Hashem's name, so admit it. So the woman ended up saying, Tmei I'm Tamei. Now, meanwhile, they already brought the meal offering sacrifice. So now there's a problem. The sacrifice started working, and it was already put in the holy vessels of the Beis Hamikdash, and it became holy. But now you can't bring it anymore because she admitted that she really cheated, and the sacrifice is really only for a woman who's a saita, who's a suspected adulteress. But a confirmed adulteress doesn't bring the barley offering. It's for someone who we don't know. Now she admitted it. Now we got a problem. So you have to burn it. That's one case where you have to burn it. Or what's option 2 where you have to burn it? Either the woman admitted it, so it was already started being brought as a sacrifice, and then she admitted it. So now to cancel it out, you have to burn it. Or she didn't admit it, but witnesses all of a sudden came while they were arranging the sacrifice, the meal offering of barley for the suspected adulteress. Witnesses came, she Tumeya, and said, we testify that this woman ended up cheating and we saw her. So there's no point in bringing the sacrifice anymore because we're confirming that she's not a suspected adulteress, which the sacrifice is for. She's a confirmed adulteress. So that is the new Mishnah that Rav is bringing up from somewhere else in order to question Reb Shesh's premise that water doesn't check a woman when there's witnesses. What's the connection? We just learned the Mishnah about burning a sacrifice at this point. So the Gemara is going to say, well, let's discuss that. This last Mishnah that we learned. The also Eidem Emas. When did the witnesses come? You're saying witnesses showed up while you were doing the process. When did they show up? Let's break it down. If you want to say they came before you were sanctified, the flour, the barley of the meal offering, what does it mean sanctifying? Let's see what Rashi says. Mikami the siktash the klisharis in the holy vessels before you put it in the holy vessels. So you never ever even put the barley into the vessels, utensils, the vessels of the Beis Hamikdash. Well, if they never even put the barley into the vessels in the Beis Hamikdash to begin the sacrifice procedure, tepuk l'cholin, let it just go. You never actually did any substantial part of the service with the barley. So just let it just go back to the store, go use it as regular flour. You maybe intended to use it, but you never even did anything. You never entered the vessels of the temple, so it's not holy. So it must be where we're telling you that you have to burn it when she admitted it or the witnesses came after it became holy. So Rashi, let's go to Rashi and pointing to it. The bottom the klisharis mekachin, because the vessels of the Beis Hamikdash sanctify whatever's put in it. As a roy lehem. However, there's one clause, and we have this, by the way, by the Mizbeach also, similar idea. The Mizbeach could sanctify sometimes a thing that's even impure. That there was done in an incorrect way. However, there's a clause. If it was not fitting at all, I think maybe if you put an animal that's totally not fitting or totally didn't belong on there, then the altar won't have the ability to sanctify. The same thing is here. The vessels of the temple are powerful to sanctify something that is somewhat fitting to go in there. But if the item that goes in the vessels are totally not fitting to go in, then it won't sanctify it. But if it's somewhat fitting, it will sanctify it. So here you put the barley in it, into the vessels, and it will sanctify it by entering. What makes the flour all of a sudden holy? It went into the vessels of the sanctuary. And it cannot anymore go out to be redeemed. It became a sacrifice and put it into the vessels of the temple. Kiddutznan, like we learned in the Torah, whoever touches them will become holy. And now you have a problem, Rashi says, because you cannot bring it as a carbon anymore. Because the point of the sacrifice of the Saita, of this suspected adulterous sacrifice, is the Elal Haskir Avoina Shalzui Shetibadek. It's about the sin that she needs to be checked. But why are we bringing a sacrifice to someone that needs to be checked? She's already checked. Witnesses came where she admitted it anymore. So now we got a problem. We can't bring it anymore. Can't burn it on the altar anymore because she's already, it's no point to the sacrifice. You can't even maybe say, well, it's become holy by entering the temple bowls and stuff, but let me just bring this as a regular meal offering. Why can't I just take the barley and bring it as a meal offering? The minchas sa'orim, because barley, the meal offering of barley, there's only two sacrifices that barley is brought, either a saita or, right, I think after Pesach, the second day Pesach, we bring the barley offering once a year and that's it. So you can't use that flour that became holy anymore. So what do you do with it? What are we supposed to do with it? She admitted now that she's not a suspected adulteress, she's a confirmed adulteress. And the only point is sacrifices for that, and it already became holy. And therefore, you have to burn it. Let's go back in the Gemara. So it must have not talking about the Gemara said before you put it in the vessel, because then let it just go. If it was never entered the vessel, just use it back for anything you want. It's not holy. It must be after you put it in the vessel. Okay, wait a second. Now let me ask you a question. And then you said, okay, so it must be the witnesses or she admitted it after it was in the vessel. Now, why does it have to be burnt? Why does it have to be burnt? Because you can't use it for anything else, but it's holy. But we can't use it for her because it can't be used for her because we know she's not a suspected adulteress anymore. So now he says, listen, here is where we're going to ask the question on Rav Sheshes' idea. If I would not have had the statement out of Sheshes, if I don't agree with him, that says water will check her, even if there is witnesses, it will work. Alma bas mikdash mikravi says, listen, there were witnesses that this woman cheated. We didn't know there were witnesses. But the fact is, if in theory, if we didn't agree with Rav Sheshes and water would check her, the water would still work. And even though we have witnesses we don't know of, then the water would still work. Shapir Kadesh, and when she was holy to begin with, she was real. When the flour went in together with this potion that wanted to work, the potion would work. And as that flour, the barley enters the vessels of the temple, it makes it holy. It works because we don't care if there's witnesses or not. Nobody knows whether she cheated or not. There are witnesses, but we don't know about them. And then what happened was it went into the vessels. The vessels made it holy, and then the witnesses came where she admitted it, and now we have a problem. She's not a suspected adulteress anymore; she's a confirmed adulteress. So that's why we have to burn it. Ella, but the amrit, if you want to say like Rav Sheshes wants to say that ein hamayim bait kenoisa. Listen, follow the logic here. That the water does not check her if there are witnesses. The water doesn't work. Tigli milsalim afreya. Then when we find out later on that there were witnesses, that will reveal that the water would never have worked to begin with, because now we know that there's witnesses. The whole water thing doesn't work according to Rav Sheshes if there's witnesses. So when you originally brought the potion together with the sacrifices that come with the potion, it would have never worked to begin with. And you put the barley in the temple vessels to make it holy, but Tawas, it was a mistake, Kaddish. It was a mistake to begin with because the potion couldn't work anyway, because according to Rav Sheshes, the potion doesn't work if there's witnesses. Then in such a case, the vessels of the temple should not sanctify the water, because temple vessels will only sanctify the barley, the sacrifice of something that potentially could work. But according to Rav Sheshes, the whole thing is a fraud. The whole thing doesn't work because the the as long as there's witnesses that the woman cheated, the potion doesn't work. And if the potion doesn't work, then the sacrifice is meaningless. And if the sacrifice is meaningless, the vessels of the temple cannot sanctify something that doesn't work. It doesn't work to begin with. It's meaningless, the whole thing. So the temple sacrifices could only work on something that in theory could work, and they'll make it holy even though it's not true. So let's say the woman really cheated. She's a suspected adulteress. If the water would work, fine, it would work. And the witnesses came. Meanwhile, the vessels already sanctified the barley flour that comes along with the potion. And then the witnesses came, and now we have a problem because it sanctified the barley, and we have to burn it because we found out before we brought her on the altar that she wasn't a suspected adulteress anymore. She was a confirmed one. But in our case, according to the Absheshes, that says the water never even works, then the sacrifice that came with it never even was correct, should never have been brought, and the temple should have never made it holy. And then you shouldn't have to burn it because it never became holy. It stayed chulin, it stayed mundane because it wasn't even allowed to be brought. In such a case, the vessels of the temple shouldn't be able to sacrifice it. Let's see Rashi, shouldn't be able to make it holy. Let's see Rashi inside. If you hold like the opinion that waters will check her even if there's witnesses, not like Absheshes said, that if she would have drank it and before witnesses came, the water would have still worked and would have proven that she cheated, the potion still works. Even though we have witnesses, it still also helps us out. Then at the time, she didn't have a clear when they originally put the barley flour in the vessel in the beginning. It was fitting for the klishares, for the temple vessels. It was fitting. It was fitting for there because even though the witnesses, it still works. That he shaita because at that time, the flour works because it was a point where the woman was a suspected, not a confirmed adulteress, and the vessels could therefore sanctify the flour. Just like any suspected saita, because it works even though there are witnesses, but we don't know that there are witnesses at that time, and therefore it works. Therefore, when you put the barley flour in the vessel, it correctly made it holy. Because of this, when the witnesses come, if salam then when the witnesses came, they said, look, you can't burn it anymore. It worked, it made it holy, but now that we're here, there's no point to bring the rest of the sacrifice. And you can't go anymore to be used for other stuff, the flour, for mundane things, because it was already sanctified, and it was sanctified in the correct way. And surface, and therefore the only choice is to burn it. Let's do the next Rashi. But if you say, according to the Absheshes, that the water does not confirm that she's a site, it doesn't work anymore once there are witnesses, since it's the water doesn't work, it's a farce, the whole thing. It can't check her, it doesn't even work because there are witnesses up there, according to the Absheshes, and it won't work. Later in the mincha, this whole sacrifice of a meal offering is not fitting at all to be a meal offering. Tigli Milsalim Afreya, it should reveal at the later stage when the witnesses came that when we put the flour, barley in the temple vessel, the loyhoisa really clear, it wasn't fitting at all for it to go inside the temple vessel. And the temple vessels will only sanctify something that is befitting at least to be used as a sacrifice. Like we say in the Talmud Zvachim, that vessel temples only could make holy something that's befitting at least to be in the situation. And according to the Absheshes that it didn't work, and it was never allowed to be in the vessels, and the vessels didn't work to make it holy, then you don't have to burn the flour based on Absheshes, because the barley flour should just be mundane, but loy pidyon, without even having to redeem it. It should just totally go free. And now he's going to explain a little bit of about the sacrifice of the flour. It's an interesting Rashi here about the sacrifice of the flour, of how it works. Listen how it works. Kedushas peh shalah ukdushas kli shalah akol b'tor. It says, first of all, this sanctifying of the person saying, let me sanctify this flour as a sacrifice for a suspected adulteress. Let me put it in the vessel. It's all a farce. Doesn't work. There's witnesses. This whole thing's not real. Everything is fake, and therefore it's not, no holiness happened to it. Because we thought that she needs a mincha offering, this barley offering. But it's not true. The hegdish tos and a hegdish, and something that was made holy by hegdish, to sanctify, that wasn't allowed to even begin. It's not considered hegdish. I thought we were going to talk about another Rashi, but that's the point so far. You're following me, Gershom and Ash. It makes sense so far? Yeah? Okay.
All good.
Oh, good. Okay. So let's go back in the Gemara. I don't know if the first time we're doing Rashi, hopefully it's not, it's actually adding to the flavor instead of being too much. Let's go back inside the Gemara.
Levi, just before you continue, how long are you planning to go? I'm wondering if we have time to finish the entire daf.
The Amid, hopefully the Amid. Till when do you have? Till 10?
No, I have whatever. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, we're gonna finish today. This is the biggest point right here. This is the biggest point. Amid Rabbi Yehuda midiskarto. So we have a question. We're questioning Reb Sheshes. How could he's bringing a question on Reb Sheshes from Reb Sheshes says that the water doesn't work if there are witnesses there. So he says, well, why, according to Reb Sheshes, do we have to burn the water, this flour? Why can't it just go back to the store if the water potion doesn't work? The sacrifice that's brought together with that potion also is meaningless, and being put in the vessel should not make it holy, and therefore it shouldn't have to be burnt if the potion does not work in such a case. From the Diskarta wanted to answer the question. An interesting theory comes up, but then we're going to disagree with it. Going, oh, she sinned in the interesting answer, funny answer. He says, where did she commit adultery that it was confirmed that it wasn't suspected? In the Azara, in the courtyard of the temple. So, in other words, the water was correct. She was a suspected adulteress at that point with another guy. But then witnesses came that saw her commit adultery in the courtyard. We're going to question this in a second. And therefore, she now needs to be killed, whatever. We need to take her to court. Forget about the suspected adultery. We have a confirmed kind of adultery now. But the water, we don't have witnesses to that. And why is it being burnt? According to Reb Sheshes, it's being burnt not because when it was put in, there were witnesses far away. No, it wouldn't need to be burnt for that reason, because it would just go free. Because according to Reb Sheshes, the whole thing didn't work, and they just go free. Why is it being burnt? Because a new case happened where she cheated here in the Azar in the courtyard. That when the first potion was made and the barley offering was brought with it, it really was Kaddish, it really was holy. We're not saying that there were witnesses there, because if there were witnesses then you're right, the thing wouldn't need to be burnt. In our mission now, when we're saying it needs to be burnt, it's because a new case happened. The woman cheated in with witnesses in the courtyard now, and now there's nothing to bring anymore. She needs to be killed. So that's the answer of Rabbi Yehuda midiskarto. He's saying, no, the two missions are talking about two different things. Rav Sheshes is talking about a case where there were witnesses at the time earlier on, when they suspected she was an adulteress, then they found out, the witnesses came, then they could just really let the barley offering just go for free, because it never made it holy in the vessels. So why in that Mishnah, this other case that we brought up, we say it has to be burnt? Because this is a new case, when it says it has to be burnt, she cheated in the Azar, and that's why you can't bring it anymore, because she's not a suspected, she's confirmed with a new case, and that's why we have to burn it. Okay, Master Reb Sharsha. So Reb Sharsha asked an obvious question. Don't the young Kohanes lead her? What do you mean that she cheated in the Azara? A new case of adultery, confirmed case of adultery happened in the temple courtyard. The young Kohanim who deal with her are there. How could it happen? So the Gemara says, because she sinned with those Kohanim. That's one answer. And therefore, she doesn't bring it anymore. Rav Ashi says, or she didn't sin with the Kohanim. That's a far-fetched case to say that's what it was talking about. That's why we have to burn it, because she did a new sin there. She needed to go to the bathroom. Are the young Kohanim attached to her by the head, that they're like, she can't get away? It's possible to happen. And that is the way to answer the question why you burn it, even though according to the Reb Sheshes, in theory, it should go free, because the witnesses that are coming are not the witnesses from when she was a suspected adulteress. It's a new case of witnesses. Something new happened here, and therefore it's disqualifying her carbon, and that's why it has to go to be burnt. But if it was witnesses to the original if it was witnesses to the original time she cheated, then the carbon would actually go free, because according to Rab Sheshes, the water doesn't work anymore in a case where there were witnesses by the original case. Again, it's shver. Rab Papa is gonna answer a final answer that's gonna make it clear. Rab Papa says, "La'olam really kidam rinun mikara." Let's go back to what we said originally. Not add these stories that she cheated in. There was a new case that happened, and she cheated in the courtyard with the Kehanim. Let's explain it a little bit different. Witnesses came to the original adultery that we suspected her of when she hid it with the person in the room. But then according to Rab Sheshes, why do you have to burn it? With the Ka'amrit, and this that you're saying according to Rab Sheshes, that the water doesn't check, and therefore the carbon shouldn't be a real carbon. Tepuk l'chulin, and it should go to be mundane, should not be holy anymore, because it was put in the vessel to begin with a potion that doesn't even work, because according to Rab Sheshes, it doesn't work. With the Rabbanan, it's a rabbinic decree that it has to be burnt. What's the svara? Kizeira, a decree, Shema Yoimru, so people shouldn't say, look, they're taking barley. They don't know, and not everybody knows the halachas. They're taking barley that was put inside the vessels, and I thought the rule is that vessels make things holy. And imagine they just take the barley out of it, and they go sell it back in the marketplace. Someone has a barbecue, whatever, makes challah out of it for themselves, or so on. So they said, Chachamim basically said, no, it's not a biblical thing, it's a rabbinic thing. Burn it, even though you're right that this stuff, in theory, you could literally just take it out of the holy vessels that was brought as a carbon and just send it back to the marketplace and do whatever you want with it. But it doesn't look good. People will see what's going on. So the Chachamim said, don't take it out, just burn it in the courtyard. It's not something that you could just use for whatever you want once it's already been in the vessels. Although theoretically, according to Rab Sheshes, that the potion doesn't work where there were witnesses there, although theoretically the potion won't work. You're right. And according to Rab Sheshes, it really is not holy. The Chachamim said, we want you to burn it just in case, we don't want anybody saying that you took stuff out of the holy vessels and used it for your own needs. Keep it and burn it and don't let it go out to the public from there. And that is the conclusion of this first case. So we started off with questioning Rab Sheshes. This is theory. Rab Sheshes is learning that we question Rab Sheshes is learning that the water doesn't work when there are witnesses there to check, or the potion doesn't work. And we asked, well, why do you have to burn it? The answer is a simple answer. We're burning it because the Chachamim are worried to start taking out barley from holy vessels. It doesn't look good. It might send the wrong message. People might not realize that in this was a unique case because the potion never was able to check her. Therefore, the sacrifice with her also was disqualified to begin with in the vessels. In this scenario, did not make the barley holy. The rabbi says, does not look good, just burn it like you do other stuff that is befitting to be in there. And that's the answer to the question on Rab Sheshes. Should we do Rashi or should we go on the Gemara? Let's go on. Let's just go on what do you want? Rashi or Gemara? Continue along.
I'd like to finish if we could, whichever one is done.
I think we'll finish anyway. Okay, let's go on. Massive Rav Mari asked the question. So we're going to ask another question. I think this is the last one, or second to last one on Sheshes. We're going to get to the Mishnah. Mari asked the question, Nitmeis Minchasa, from another place. It says elsewhere, if her mincha, her meal offering, a new case, became impure. Not that we have witnesses that came. Another case, the meal offering became impure. Somehow, something happened, disqualification of the temple. If the meal offering that was brought to bring a sacrifice before it was originally put into the holy temple vessels, it became disqualified. But the guy made it into a donation. It's like any other meal offering. Then you could redeem it. It was never actually placed in the temple vessels, making it an actual sacrifice. It was promised to become holy, but it was never made into an actual sacrifice. Okay, so we could redeem it. Just, whatever value it is, give the temple X amount of money. Now it can be used for whatever you want, and then you use the money to buy other flour, other things. Fine. However, this Mishnah or Brisa, whatever it says, once it became holy in a vessel, you put it in. Now we got a problem. It became a carbon. It becomes an actual mincha meal offering. This is sarif, and it now needs to be burnt. You got to burn it. Now there's a step further. After they originally put it in the first bowl, okay, they take a temple bowl, they put the barley offering in the first bowl. What's the procedure? We know in the Torah. The kohen makes a scoop like I'm doing with my fingers, and he scoops out a fistful, and he puts it in another bowl. Okay, so that was part of the process. Scoop it out of one, we'll put it in another. So Kadash HaKoimetz, what happens if you made it holy with Kemitza, with that scooping? So he already went on to the next step. After went into the bowl, he then did a part of the service with it. Well, hispically, now what happened is he's bringing a sacrifice in the merit of someone, the name of someone, for whatever reason, in the intent of a person. As the kohen's doing the process, the short amount of time, the guy died. This is what this price or a Mishnah is saying over here. Person passed away. Who? Either he died. It's talking about the suspected adulteress. The guy died. If the guy died, there's nothing to check the wife for anymore. The question is, could they be married to each other? The guy's not alive anymore. You don't need to check. Oh yeah, I may say he or she died, and the sacrifice is no point anymore. Then it has to do like whatever you do with all minchas in this case. There's nothing to do. It already became holy. You even did kamitza with it. You already put it in a vessel. You already scooped it out. But there's nobody there to bring it for. It's bringing for a tent. You got to burn it. You can't put it on the temple. You got to burn it in that special burning place on the bottom of the altar. What about another case? Karav HaKoimetz, he went even further before that a wrong thing happened. He did the scooping and he brought it on the temple. He did the whole procedure. But there's still something that's done after that. Usually the Kohanim will eat the remainder, right? After that scoop goes on the Mizbech, what happens with the rest of the bowl? Kohanim are supposed to eat it like they do with sin offerings, and that brings forgiveness to the owner. But the Kohanim never had a chance to process that yet. They never ate it. Shirayim, to eat the remainders, until one of them died. So they didn't do that part of the procedure. Should the Kohanim eat it? Then it's like all of the sacrifice and it should be eaten. Why? Because the procedure was already done. In other words, they were alive at the time that the procedure needed to check them and happen to them. Finished. Action completed. The remaining eating is kind of like an after project, an after thing. And therefore, that after project could still be done. Why? Why did the main event accomplish what it needed to accomplish? Because what's the reason you originally brought a suspected adulterous sacrifice? Because there was a question here. Can he be married to her? She be married to him? Kipra, it was accomplished. Sveika, this sacrifice is brought for a reason. Now she died later on, but the event, the sacrifice took place, was done, everything was done correctly. So now you can eat the remaining afterwards later on. This is an interesting Mishnah, but we're getting to a point here what you want to bring. Well, Aiden, what happens if witnesses came? She tmeya, that she's impure. What's the halacha? Going back to our topic, minchas and estrefes, her meal offering is burnt. If witnesses came, what happens? Witnesses showed up that said that, she really cheated, and now it cannot be a sacrifice anymore. I guess before they did the scooping, or after the scoop, before they burnt it, the meal offering now has to be burnt. Interesting case. However, if a second group of witnesses came, we're going to go into the laws of Zaymimim. What's Zaymimim? Is that the rule is that, so first group of witnesses came, they would have made the sacrifice be burnt because it had to be burnt. The witnesses came, the Zaymimim, and those witnesses themselves were caught to be liars. They were never allowed to say that the woman cheated because they were disproven witnesses. They said you were in a different place at a different time, and therefore we know your testimony is not true. The rules of Eid Zaymim, which we'll learn another time. Maybe that's Makas. We'll do that Masechta next after this. Minchas chulin, her meal offering then becomes chulin, goes free, it goes to nothing. You could do whatever you want with it. Very interesting. Because the witnesses were disproven, they were caught to be liars. The bottom line is, whatever the reason is, without getting into that Mishnah, we want to bring one point from this. The fact is that flour that was in those bowls actually can go free. But now he's questioning this Mishnah that how could you say ever, in any case, that flour can leave a bowl that was in the Beis Hamikdash doesn't go free when you just told me a minute ago? The Gemara, I think it was Rav Papa who said this, that the Rabbanan made a gzeira that you can never take out flour from the holy vessels of the temple ever. Why not? Because people will say that holy flour that was put in the temple is now going to be eaten by mundane people. Didn't you just tell me there's a rabbinic enactment? Didn't you just say that there's a rabbinic enactment that anything that's put in temple vessels needs to be burnt, cannot be brought out, because people will start questioning, how could you put items in temple vessels? In this mission, it seems that that's not true. You made up something that's not true. We have a case here where there was flour, barley in the temple vessels, and you did take them out. So who made up, how are you saying that Chacham made a decree? You always have, you can never take it once it's in temple vessels. It either is burnt or brought at a sacrifice. So the Gemara says an interesting answer. In this case, we're going to stick with what we said, that we do not usually want you to remove an item that was born in the temple, because people will question, how could you do that in the temple? However, in a case of Edom Zaymimim, where the witnesses were disproved, that makes the top news cycle. Everybody knows about that. Edom Zaymimim Ka'amrit, you're bringing me a case of Edom Zaymimim where witnesses were disproved, and telling me over there that we are allowed to take the flour, the barley out of the temple vessels. And at Edom Zaymimim Kala Islu, there's a huge voice. Everybody knows the news. So nobody's going to say, oh my gosh, they're taking out flour from a temple vessel and just using it for whatever they want. No, everybody knows that case. Everybody knows that story. And everybody knows that they're taking it out of the temple vessel because it was not allowed to be to begin with. And it's a famous story. And that's why really we always say, like we were saying, we wanted to say earlier in the Gemara, that whenever you put something in a vessel, it has to be burnt. And that it wasn't a question of Absheshis, because according to the Absheshis, we said it should not have been burnt to begin with. Why does it have to be burnt? Because we don't take things out, unless it's a famous case where there's false, where witnesses were disproven, and that makes top news. In that case, you could take stuff out of the chol. It's a unique case over there that you're allowed to take the sacrifice, the flour out of the bowl. Now we're going to finish the Gemara. So we finished basically done. We're finished asking questions on Absheshis. Absheshis is theory and his thought was able to hold ground. We asked many questions on the earlier page. We asked a big question on this page. The reason in the story why it had to be burnt is because the rabbis don't want you generally taking out flour or items out of temple vessels and then just using them for whatever you want. Therefore, it has to be burnt. But we're still following Absheshis' theory. Absheshis is teaching that water potion does not work if there are witnesses alive in somewhere else. Tanya Kavasi, Absheshis can conclude proving Absheshis is correct from somewhere else. Instead of asking another question on it, we're going to prove that he's correct. Tanya, we learned a brisa. Kavasi did Absheshis like Absheshis. Belav mitaymei, but not from the reason we said. A new source to prove that he's correct. A new brisa from a different angle, from a different reason. So the Torah says, in the case Tahira he, Utahira he. I want to just go to that Rashi who talks about this verse that we want to quote, so we know what we're talking about. Here, Utahira he, it says like this. V'im loy nitma, at the end of, I believe it was at the end of the Saita story, we just read it in the Parsha this week, in Shul, the Shabbos yesterday. If she didn't become impure Ha'isha, she never really was with the guy. In other words, she was in a room, but she never defiled herself with him. Utahirahi, and she is pure. V'niksa v'nizra zara, she's going to be clean and she'll have children. In other words, the potion will be a blessing for her instead of a curse. Now the words utahirahi are superfluous. It should have just said if the woman never became impure, and then jumped v'niksa v'nizra zara, then the potion will work. Why does it say? And if she did not defile herself and she is pure, what do you mean? If she didn't defile herself, obviously she's pure. So what are this Bryce is telling us that the words utahira he is coming to teach us three things. There's three extra things here. The word tahira, then the vav is also the fact of saying pure, and the vav and pure, and he and she is pure. All those three words are then extra. So the Brisa wants to say we learn three things from these three extra words. From the Tahira word, that if she's pure in the water doesn't check her, he says, well, the water won't work. The Brisa says, from the extra word Tahira, that she's pure, is telling me if there's witnesses, even if it also won't work. And then from the extra vav, Tahira, from the Torah saying an extra vav there, is also coming to say that she has no merit. If she has a merit, it will also cause that the water is not to work. And from the extra word he, we learn it also won't work if she'll be the topic of conversation, the woman I think who sowed to the moon. In other words, the yappers, the chatters, like we spoke on Shabbos and about Pirkei Avos, the idle chatter. Well, everyone's talking about her in the news. She's in the front pages of the news. The water won't check her either. So there's three extra words the Brisa says: Tahira, Utahira, and he. That's saying it also will not work if there's witnesses in a foreign country against her, or if she has merit. We're going to learn that she has the merit of Torah, whatever that means. We'll learn it another later on. Or if everyone's already condemning her, then the potion won't work. And this proves. The bottom line is, this now proves Reb Sheshes that he said in the earlier Amid, said in the previous class we had, that if there's witnesses, it won't work. Here you have a brisa that says exactly like what Reb Sheshes says, that if there's witnesses here, among two other things besides that one, total of three, the potion won't work. Now,
Levi, what does it mean, Moisers Kalavana?
I think the people who sow to the moon, they stay up late, like sowing stuff or doing stuff to the moon, they yisu v'yitnu, but they're going to discuss her and talk about her. I think Moses is like a sowing or something to the moon out, late at night, they're sitting and sowing, basically means that they're talking and everybody's talking about her, then the potion won't work either. The bottom line is, we're going back to Reb Shimon for a second. Reb Shimon was of the opinion who said that we cannot say this agreed with I think it was Reb Sheshes. Reb Shimon says that Reb Shimon said something else. I'm sorry. Reb Shimon said that he was upset or bothered by us saying that the potion won't work if she has a merit. He didn't like that. He didn't like it to say if she has a merit, then the potion won't work. Why did he not like that idea that says the potion won't work if she has a merit? Because that basically, he says, disqualifies the whole potion situation. It's basically anyone that took the potion and they were okay. Now we don't believe them anymore that they were okay. Maybe they had a merit, right? So he says, I don't like this. I don't like this notion that we're saying that people have merit and the potion won't work, because then no one will buy into the whole thing. That doesn't prove anything. Maybe people have merit and then they just don't die from it. So he says, but Reb Shimon, remember, which of the three taught us that merit protects the woman that she won't die? The Vav. So Reb Shimon simply says, Mihi the Vav loy darish. He says, look, I don't say the Vav is extra. It's very easy. It's an easy argument to have. You said the Vav is extra. I say the Vav is not extra. So in other words, the Vav belongs there. The word and belongs in the conversation over there. The other two words are superfluous, but the word Vav is not superfluous. And therefore, he says, I'm just going to, you brought two exceptions where it won't work. I'm going to say that your third exception, I'm not going to accept that exception because it can't be. So two of the three are good, but one of the three are no good. And I want to say which one's no good, saying that merit will protect it because then the potion will be meaningless. So he says Reb Shimon could simply say, I don't agree that the Vav is extra. But Va'ika, we have another problem, and I got to go to the next page. Let me see if I can get it here. We're going to the first two lines of the next page. Hold on one second, sorry. Got to pause it here. And let's go to the first two lines of the next page. Even though the Vav, he doesn't want to learn, right? Hold on. The Vav leidarish lav ha'ika, but what does he do with the other two lessons? The other two whole words, which were for sure extra, he can't just get away with saying, I don't think they're extra. Yesh la'ed b'mdina sayam. What does he do with Reb Shesh's theory that says, and we have now an extra word proving Reb Sheshes is correct, that if there are witnesses there, he says that the potion won't work either. What is Reb Sheshes going to do with that? So Reb Sheshes says it doesn't bother him so much to say that the potion didn't work because there are witnesses there. Why not? Because it's very unusual for a woman to be a suspected adulteress, and there happens to be witnesses in a faraway country that did not come forward. In other words, the other people won't say the reason the potion didn't work is because there are witnesses far away. He's comfortable with saying there are witnesses there. If there are witnesses that it won't work, you're going to say, people will say, well, this potion is false and we don't buy its situation because maybe there's always witnesses there, but that's very uncommon. So people won't come to say that. He has a bigger problem with saying merit will protect someone, because then they'll say there's really no value to the potion because everyone could have merit. How do we know the reason it didn't kill her is not because she's faithful? Maybe she just had great merit. That people might say that, but when it comes to people saying, oh, how do we know the trust this potion is true? Because there are witnesses there, that's very uncommon. And therefore, people want to end up saying that, and people will trust the verdict of the potion to what it's trying to say. And that is the end, my friends, of today's class on Daf Vav Amud Beis. Any questions?